Hello, welcome back to the Cars.co.za YouTube channel. My name is Chira de Siena and this is the third episode in our Buyer's Guide series, where we aim to tell you everything you need to know about specific cars on the used car market. Now, in the first two episodes, we looked at the Volkswagen Tiguan and the Toyota Fortuner, but today we are looking at the Volkswagen Golf Mk8 GTI. So, are you shopping for a used version of what might just be the quintessential hot hatch? Let's examine the Volkswagen Golf 7 GTI's strengths, things to look out for, and what you can expect to pay. Just short of 15,000 units. That's how many examples of the Volkswagen Golf 7 GTI were sold in South Africa, making our country one of the largest Golf GTI markets outside of Europe. It's a staggering sales figure for any hot hatch, never mind one of the pricier options in an otherwise low volume segment. Right now, there are 225 Golf GTIs of all ages on Cars.co.za for you to browse through, and we'll put a link to that stock in the description below, or grab our awesome free app to start your search today. In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into whether you should consider a used Mk8 or 7.5 Golf GTI, its strengths, its weaknesses, common problems, and importantly, we're going to look at the 10 most important service items and replacement costs for the parts which fail most often, from the turbocharger to the front brake pads. And we've sourced prices from Volkswagen dealerships, Midas and Goldwagen, so you can compare OEM parts pricing and aftermarket parts pricing side by side. We're also going to go into replacement tire pricing with pricing obtained from Tiger Wheel and Tire as of November 2023. We'll put all this information in a table in the article version of this video with a link to that article in the description below. Let's go. Roll the theme song. Dream, search, drive. Cars.co.za. Over its lifespan, the Mk8 GTI accounted for 34% of the total 7th generation Golf sales in South Africa. The Mk8 marked the switch to the MQB platform, which brought a 42 kilogram weight saving over the Mk6, even though the Mk8 was larger. Local buyers also had the option of the more expensive Golf 7R, which offered extra power and all-wheel drive, as well as the diesel-powered GTD for a couple of years. But the GTI was South Africa's default hot hatch. While 3 and 5 door body styles were offered in many markets, South Africa received almost exclusively 5-door versions of the GTI, with just 47 units of the limited edition Clubsport S being sold in our market. Local sales of the Golf 7 GTI tapered off in early 2021, when the 8th generation model was expected to arrive. However, thanks to the global semiconductor shortage, production of MQB-based models were affected, meaning Volkswagen Group South Africa struggled to secure sufficient stock of the Golf 8 GTI. As such, local GTI fans had to wait until September 2021 for the new version to hit the market. The Golf 8 GTI has been a painful saga for Volkswagen South Africa, particularly the Golf 8R, through no real fault of their own, and we made a video about that ongoing story here. Click here. But in my mind, the limited availability of the Mk8 GTI and 8R has only made the Mk8 more sought after and has probably helped keep its values higher than otherwise would have been the case. The Mk8 Golf GTI touched down in South Africa in July 2013. At launch, the Golf 7 GTI was available with either a 6-speed manual gearbox or a dual clutch transmission branded as DSG with the same number of gears. In either case, the latest version of the EA888 turbocharged 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine pushed out 162 kilowatts and 350 newtons. This was up 7 kilowatts and 70 newton meters from the Mk6, resulting in a claimed 0 to 100 time of 6.5 seconds. Initially, the hot hatch was offered only in red, white, or black. The manual and DSG versions were tuned to offer the exact same power and torque outputs, and we'll put that on the screen for you now. Vienna leather sports seats were fitted as standard, along with the 18-inch Austin alloy wheels, wrapped in 225/40 R18 rubber. Options included dynamic chassis control, known as DCC, an upgraded infotainment system, which took the touchscreen size from 5.8 to 8 inches and added navigation, a Dyne Audio Excite sound system, which did excite me at the time, not gonna lie, keyless access, park assist, a tow bar, and a panoramic sunroof, which South Africans love. But why would you put a tow bar on a GTI? Yeah, okay, I don't get it. In April 2015, South Africa finally received the Performance Pack option. Offered exclusively with the DSG gearbox, this package increased peak power to 169 kilowatts, pushed the top speed to 248 kilometers an hour, which was 4 kilometers an hour more, and reduced the claimed 0 to 100 time by 0.1 of a second to 6.4 seconds, which is the sort of thing that really impresses your friends at the braai. The Performance Pack option included the DCC adaptive dampers as standard, a newly engineered version of the electronic front differential, larger brake discs, a GTI logo on the front calipers, and a red finish for the GTI badge on the tailgate. By July 2016, the special edition Golf GTI Clubsport Edition 40 had touched down in South Africa, celebrating 4 decades of the GTI badge. We filmed that car a long time ago. We'll link to that in the description below. One of my favorite cars of all time. Courtesy of a long list of technical refinements, the EA888 engine in the Clubsport was tuned to 195 kilowatts, while an overboost function for short bursts spiked the peak outputs to 213 and 380 newtons. This model also boasted what Volkswagen called a specially tuned chassis. Even though the Clubsport edition was front-wheel drive, according to Volkswagen, the DSG-only Clubsport claimed a 0 to 100 time of 5.9 seconds, while its maximum speed crept up to 249. The special derivative was further set apart by model-specific designs for its front bumper, side sills, rear diffuser, and multi-part roof spoiler, along with 18-inch Belvedere forged alloy wheels or optional 19-inch Brescia wheels. Oh, I loved that car. Had it for a week. Didn't want to give it back. Volkswagen added black decals with subtle Clubsport branding to the hot hatch's shoulders and included bi-xenon headlights, smoked LED tail lamps, window tints, black side mirror caps, and extra red detailing in the cabin, including a red 12 o'clock marker for the velour sport steering wheel. I love the name velour. Also feels quite nice. At that point, the Clubsport Edition 40 was the most powerful GTI the local market had ever seen. By January 2017, however, that changed. Yes, the 2-seater, 3-door Golf GTI Clubsport S arrived, taking the title of the most powerful Golf in South Africa. It was more powerful than the 206 kilowatt Golf R with its 4-cylinder turbocharged motor tuned to deliver a fantastic 228 kilowatts, 380 newtons, which is only 7 kilowatts shy of a brand new Golf 8R today. Just 47 examples of the Clubsport S were sold in South Africa, all of which were secured by buyers well before launch. Each unit was fitted as standard with a 6-speed manual gearbox, and white with a black roof was the only exterior paint option available. This ultimate GTI also offered a Nürburgring driving mode. I actually didn't know that. Uprated brakes, a special sport chassis, Michelin Sport Cup 2 tires wrapped around black 19-inch Pretoria alloys. How cool is that? Named after Pretoria for the world. And various weight-saving measures, including the ditching of boring items such as the rear seats, some insulating material, the rear parcel shelf, and the bonnet dampers. Who needs that nonsense anyway? Now, let's look at the midlife update to the Golf GTI, also known as the Golf 7.5 GTI, which arrived in South Africa in May 2017. With the arrival of the 7.5, Volkswagen SA killed off the manual gearbox, never to return again. The 7.5 GTI was offered as standard with the Mark 7 performance variant's 169 kilowatt engine tune, while also adding nice touches such as the 18-inch Milton Keynes rims, a larger touchscreen measuring 8 inches as standard or 9.2 inches as an extra, and heated front seats. There were also fresh options like a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, adaptive cruise control, and 19-inch Santiago wheels. Finally, the Golf GTI TCR arrived in South Africa around the middle of 2020 and was to be the last of the 7s. Power still came from the GTI, which drove the front wheels via a 6-speed DSG exclusively rather than the 7-speed version offered in Europe, though here it was massaged to deliver 213 kilowatts and 370 newtons. The claim 0 to 100 time was 5.6 seconds, while the removal of the electronic limiter raised the top speed to 264. Don't do that sort of thing, you'll just get arrested. It's not good. In addition to the now familiar honeycomb decals applied to the vehicle's flanks, this special Golf boasted a TCR body kit, matte black side mirror caps, 19-inch Rife Knits alloys, and uprated brakes. In South Africa, the Golf GTI TCR was available in white, grey or red, while its list of standard features included a panoramic sunroof, DCC adaptive dampers, park assist, and the digital instrument cluster. I remember that test car very fondly. Only 300 units of the TCR were allocated to South Africa, most of which were spoken for before the official market launch. By early in 2021, stock had run dry, leaving local GTI fans to wait for the 8th generation version to arrive in September 2021. Now, let's look at some of the common problems and weaknesses of the Golf 7 GTI. This stuff is properly important. First, we're going to look at some common Mark 7 GTI problems. Then we're going to go into the pricing of replacement parts as promised. Now, one of the GTI engine's most widely known weaknesses, common across various Volkswagen Group products actually, that use this motor, was its poor water pump housing design. The water pump and the thermostat with integrated sensors were packaged inside a plastic housing, which was unfortunately prone to early failure. This might initially present itself as a minor coolant leak before developing into a more substantial problem, and if left unchecked, could potentially lead to the overheating of the engine, which we all know is not a great result. Now here's a big one. The turbocharger used on early versions of the Golf 7 GTI, from at least the first 1.5 years of manufacture, by most accounts was vulnerable to sudden failure. This would typically present as a drastic loss of power and/or poor acceleration, along with the exhaust smoke of death and a distinctive whining noise. Volkswagen and IHI Corporation, the manufacturer of the turbo, rolled out a couple of design revisions for this component quite early on, meaning later models were equipped with what were claimed to be more reliable turbos. So if you're buying one of those early options or one of those early models, just be careful. Additionally, we've heard a number of complaints that the Mark 7 Golf GTI, which sat 15 mils lower than standard versions of that hatchback, sometimes produced a knocking noise from its rear suspension. Volkswagen was said to have revised the rear shock absorber design early in the vehicle's life cycle, but the issue seemingly continued into later model years. When test driving a Golf 7 GTI that you're considering buying, listen carefully for any strange knocking or rattling sounds from the rear of the car, particularly at speeds below 60 kilometers an hour. So were there any other known faults? Well, some early versions of the GTI badged Golf 7 suffered from malfunctioning fuel suction pumps, while ignition coil pack failures, excessive carbon buildup in the intake valves, and a creaking and sometimes even leaking sunroof have all been listed as fairly common problems. Now that brings me very neatly to a discussion about the replacement parts and the tire prices. Right, so I've got the spreadsheet of parts which our awesome video intern Paul put together for me this morning, and I've got all that pricing on my laptop, which, as I mentioned, we will add in full to the written version of this video on our site. The link to that article will be in the description below, or above my head somewhere here. It should pop out now and you can click on it on your phone. And what Paul also did for us was source current tire pricing for the stock standard wheels. Right, my teleprompter says I must go to my laptop. I'm here now. What must I do now? So let's have a chat about parts pricing for the Golf Mk8 GTI and 7.5 because basically the drivetrain was the same. So what I've done is take 10 of the most common service items and some of the most common parts which fail, and we've got pricing from VW dealers, Midas and Goldwagen. Now I'm not going to go into everything, but here's a couple of highlights. So front brake discs you can get from Midas for 920 bucks. From Goldwagen, 2,750 Rand each, and from the Volkswagen dealer, 4,000 Rand each. Now, if we go down to the water pump, funnily enough, it's more expensive at Goldwagen, 5,000 at Goldwagen, 2,700 at a dealership. But let's look at that turbocharger because that's a big one. Now, you won't get one at Midas, unfortunately. You will get one at Goldwagen for 15,500. If you go to Volkswagen dealership, 38,000 Rand for the turbocharger. Now, we spoke about that fuel pump. You can't get one at Midas. You can get it at Goldwagen, 2,500. Then there's two different ones. The in-tank one is 6,900 at a dealership, and the mechanical one, the separate one, is 8,900. Now, the parts basket that we looked at, the 10 parts, you'll get from Goldwagen for about 39,000 Rand, whereas the same parts basket at a Volkswagen dealer is 85,000 Rand. Now, as I said, this awesome table is available on our website right now. Check out the link to that article in the description below. Now, let's quickly get into tires. So the 18-inch was a 225 40/18. That was fitted with Pirelli Cinturatos, and the 19-inch was fitted with Pirelli P0s. Now, we got prices for you on the 18-inch. The Michelins will cost you 3,800 Rand each from Tiger Wheel and Tire as of November 2023 when we're filming this. Or you can go for the Hancooks, which funnily enough is now standard fitment on the Golf 8 GTI, which will cost you 2,000 Rand each, which is quite a big saving. Tires are important, don't skimp, get yourself some good rubber. Now in South Africa, all variants of the Golf 7 GTI range were covered by a 3-year 120,000 kilometer warranty and a 5-year 90,000 kilometer service plan with intervals of 15,000 kilometers. So at the time of filming in November 2023, a number of late model year examples on the used market will still enjoy a few years of service cover. When comparing prices of second-hand GTIs, make sure to consider all the options fitted to the different examples you're looking for. If you're shopping for a standard version, for instance, look out for the models featuring the DCC adaptive damping. The tilt and slide sunroof was also particularly popular in South Africa, while the GTI could further be specified with items such as parking sensors and keyless entry. At the time of filming, a whopping 96% of the Golf 7 GTIs on Cars.co.za featured the DSG transmission. Only 4% of the listings were manuals. Interestingly, 2017 was easily the most popular model year, while pre-facelift examples were little more common than the so-called 7.5s. So what about the special editions? Well, the Clubsport made up 8% of our Golf 7 GTI listings, while the TCR only made up 4% of our listings, and predictably, only 2 examples of the Clubsport S were listed on our site. Only about 10 models on our site were fitted with a performance pack. Maybe people just hang on to them. Mileage on the clocks varied from just 5,700 kilometers on a Clubsport S to 280,000 Ks, which we found on a 2015 DSG. As you might have guessed, white was the most common paint color at 55% of listings, followed by gray and red at 13% each. Now let's look at some price bands. We'll start below 300,000. Most Golf 7 GTIs listed below this price point were from the 2 earliest model years, namely 2013 and 2014, and high mileage is common. We also noticed plenty of aftermarket accessories in this price band, from suspension drops and downpipes to sound systems. The least expensive example we found on our site was a 2014 model with a manual gearbox and 235,000 Ks on the clock, priced at 189,900. So that is basically where the used market begins for the Mk8, at least on Cars.co.za. Let's look at 300,000 to 400,000 Rand. This price bracket represented the highest number of 7 and 7.5 GTIs on our site at the time of filming. However, virtually all the vehicles in this price band had under 150,000 on their clocks, so we're starting to get into some desirable territory here. Now on our site, you'll find a number of seemingly clean examples, including a few Club Sports and some units fitted with a performance pack between 300 and 400,000 Rand. All that being said, the 7.5s dominated this price bracket. Now let's go to 400,000 to 500,000 Rand. Most GTIs listed here were 7.5s, though a few pre-facelift Club Sports found their way into this price bracket. On average, mileage on the clock here was below 100,000 Ks, while aftermarket items such as non-OEM wheels and body kits were few and far between. Let's go from 500,000 and up. Above the 500,000 mark, we found a couple of low mileage Club Sports along with plenty of late model year 7.5 GTIs, including most of the TCR units on offer. The most expensive Golf 7 GTI we could find was the Clubsport S mentioned above, with just 5,700 on the clock. Oh, I'd love one of those in my garage. That was priced at 770, which interestingly is a little higher than the 2017 retail price of 742,000 Rand. Right, so what is our pick of the bunch? Or put another way, which version of the Golf 7 GTI should be at the top of your shopping list? Well, since the manual gearbox is in such short supply, we'd suggest sticking to the DSG boxed vehicles. While we would certainly be tempted by the performance pack if we were in the market for a pre-facelift GTI, these are actually becoming very hard to find. I think I'd jump on one of those if I could find one. And what about the various special editions? Well, these are also few and far between these days and tend to be priced at a significant premium as well. That said, if you have your heart set on a Club Sport, Clubsport S or TCR and your bank balance allows, then live the dream, YOLO, as the youth say. We think these are fine hot hatches that stand out just a little more than your standard GTI. So that takes us neatly to a standard GTI, which we'd argue is best experienced in facelifted form and preferably with the DCC adaptive dampers fitted. As a reminder, the mid-cycle refresh saw Volkswagen's popular hatch upgrade to the 169 kilowatt engine tune, while also scoring a bit of extra standard equipment and an expanded selection of options for the initial buyers to tick, like a tow bar, which I still don't understand. Can you guys explain this to me? Like, let me know in the comments why you're gonna fit a tow bar to your GTI. I don't get it. Of course, as always, we should put a disclaimer here with all of our used car buying advice, in particular when it comes to used performance cars. Bear in mind that hot hatches, this goes without saying, such as the GTI tend to be driven hard, which makes evidence and proof of regular, proper maintenance all the more important. We'd also steer well clear of modified examples. Do your best to find stock standard examples. So, the ultimate question, is the Volkswagen Golf 7 GTI a good used buy in South Africa right now? While none of the 7 GTI's rivals sold in any numbers even approaching the Golf 7 GTI volumes, there were still a few interesting front-wheel drive alternatives in this segment of the hot hatch market. The C346 Gen Ford Focus ST, P10 Series Opel Astra OPC, Honda Civic Type R, both the FK2 and FK8, and Renault Megane RS 3rd and 4th generation versions, all arguably offered more driver engagement than the Golf, but none of these were available locally with an automatic gearbox. And of course, the underappreciated Hyundai i30N switched from a manual gearbox to a dual clutch transmission in 2022, by which time the Golf 8 GTI had arrived. The W176 Gen Mercedes-Benz A250 Sport, meanwhile, was also offered with a dual clutch transmission, although this transmission wasn't nearly as sophisticated in its operation as Volkswagen's DSG. And also, this version of the A-Class had quite a few other issues too. We've got an article on that, we'll put that in the description. The Volvo V40 T5 was another hot hatch with an auto box, as was the Mini Clubman JCW. Those are a bit hard to find, but they're quite interesting options. Now, the more extreme rivals that I've mentioned above, offering manual gearboxes, were all arguably more capable of serving up greater thrills than the Mark 7 GTI, in our opinion at least. None could match the 7th and 7.5 Gen Golf GTI for all-round ability. Thanks to its real-world usability and levels of performance which kept you interested long into your ownership of the car, the Volkswagen Golf 7 GTI was the very definition of an everyday hot hatch. Now here's where I want you to get involved. We think the 7 and 7.5 GTI were peak Volkswagen GTI, and I want to know what you think. I'll join you in the comments below. Let's have a spirited and respectful debate. I'd imagine many of you watching this are looking or dreaming of a Golf 7 GTI. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have 225 Golf GTIs on our site as of November 2023 across multiple generations, including Golf 8. You'll find a link to all that stock in the description below. But I highly recommend downloading our free app from the Android, Apple, or Huawei app stores. Huawei? I've never known how to pronounce that. Now, I'm not kidding. I use this app every single day of my life. It is the fastest way to find new and used cars, as well as detailed specs and up-to-date pricing on every car available in South Africa. We update that app every hour. Right, thank you very much for watching. We hope you found this video useful, and we'd love it if you shared it with your family, friends, and colleagues. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, give it a whirl. I think you'll like it here. I really do. I like it here. Been here 10 years. I'm Jared Asieta. You guys have been awesome, and I'll see you on the next one. Be safe. Bye. Dream, search, drive. Cars.co.za. Are you busy trying to decide between 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars? We have an excellent compare tool on our site which will help you make sense of all the different pricing and all the different specs. You'll find it on our main site as well as in our app. It's super slick, it's easy to use, it's highly detailed, it's constantly updated with the latest information and pricing, and I can guarantee you it'll make your life a ton easier. Check it out on our website, link in the description below.